New Nando Cup video. What are we talking about today? Guess what? It's a tweet. It's another tweet that I said, something that I want to clear up because I think the tweet itself was pretty clear, but I do want to talk about this. Partially for me. A lot of the times with these, it's me just sitting down and going, okay, what is it? Like, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about that? I think this is a really complicated question. Something that I think we need to figure out as a group. And my issue is this. I've seen a lot of people talking about it, a lot of YouTubers I respect, a lot of different opinions. The question is the Mr. Beast cures 1,000 people's blindness video good? You know? That's the question I think is at the heart of this discussion. And right off the bat, I do think, regardless of what you think of the criticisms of it, like I think there's people that are criticizing it for different reasons. I do think there's a criticism that mischaracterizes what people criticizing it are saying. So kind of a reverse criticism, I guess. And it's some version of like, man, all he wanted to do was help blind people be able to see, and look at that. He's the worst person ever. And I think Mooncat had a tweet about this. I think that kind of obscures an actual conversation about it. Because obviously it's not that simple, but it's not as simple the other way either. It's not as simple as he did it and that makes this a good thing. It makes maybe the act of doing it a good thing, but is the video a good thing? And what does good mean in this context? We'll talk about it. For people that don't know, Mr. Beast is a YouTuber. I know even saying that is kind of silly, but there were people that don't know who that is. I did not know who Mr. Beast was maybe 2 years ago, and he's been the biggest YouTuber for a very long time. His whole deal is, his name I believe is Jimmy. He will hand money out and do kind of what you kind of consider like random acts of kindness, right? That's probably how they're characterized. He got in a lot of, not like trouble's not the right word, but became the subject of a lot of internet like ire after he very famously attempted to recreate Squid Game, whenever that was, 2 years ago when that was popular, unironically. And speaking of that, Jimmy, I know you're watching this, you watch all of these, maybe, I don't know, you could. I know you watch like a lot of YouTubers, and you seem like, in this right off the bat, seems like a nice guy. Not like, I don't think most people think he is like a guy who is just putting on this front and like, you know, gets done and then takes off his hat and puts on a big gold like robe and just like, oh, I touched so many pores yesterday. Like that doesn't happen. I imagine that's not, you know, that character is, I don't think many people think that, but in general, like, it seems like it's just a normal dude. But Jimmy, if you're going to do a Squid Game, you have to choose new games. The tug of war doesn't work that way. It only works if it's a surprise and it takes people, you know, catches them off guard. And because otherwise all the strong people team up against all the weak people and they win, but like on purpose. Anyway, that was the one thing. I watched the video. And that's one other thing you can say about Mr. Beast videos. I would say uncontroversially. They're very well produced, very well edited. The things like this, you know, Squid Game is insane that they did that, and it was very good. Like, the set was great. It was all very impressive. But okay. So, Mr. Beast, it feels so silly calling him Mr. Beast. Jimmy goes and makes a video. We cured 1,000 people of blindness. A lot of people were tweeting a lot of things. Some people, I saw a tweet underneath that was like, man, if there's a super heaven, you're getting into it. Which, I don't know, man. That's a wild thing to say to another human being. But in general, that's on one end of the spectrum, and the other end that I saw at least were people saying this is terrible. The video makes me sick, and I think people took that. Some people seem to take that as criticism of the idea of philanthropy or Jimmy himself. This idea that it's like a video like this is horrible. And by that kind of transitive property, Mr. Beast is horrible. Or, donating money to get people's sight restored is horrible. And I'm here to say I don't think that for sure. But I do. When I saw this video, I was kind of sickened by it. Not because of the content of the video. I think it's all more or less fine. My one thing about Mr. Beast has always been my one thing is, and I watched the video and I was actually pretty happy because of the first couple of things he said. But then he threw in here and to explain it, it starts with him standing out with a bunch of people. He says, "We're going to cure 1,000 people's blindness, hooray!" And then he goes in and he says, "Here's what we're going to do." And right off the bat, I'm like, yes, that is what I want from Mr. Beast. Because the thing the part of the whole Mr. Beast thing I'm not a huge fan of is this idea that he is the person. He is the savior, the charity man because I mean, you look at Jimmy's replies on Twitter, and it's nothing but people going like, "Mr. Beast, I need $50. Please give me $50. It must be like being a person who is known for giving out money must be really hard if you're not in the giving out money mode. Like everybody that sees you is like, "Oh my God, am I going to get $1 million right now if I can, do 5 jumping jacks?" And it's just got to be a really, I imagine, forget about ethical anything, just like it's got to be weird socially for Jimmy. But also, he's just an insanely famous person, so that's also makes everything weird socially. But what he does is basically produces a very expensive show with very refined editing, lots of, I'm sure, very high quality cameras, really meticulous construction of sets when sets are part of it, and really expensive prizes. The idea that it's just him always bugged me. And I was happy in this when he said "we," because even if you think he funded the whole thing himself independently, and there's no, it's altruism for altruism's sake, he's not getting anything out of it, which I'd say you could argue might not be the case. But forget about all of that. He's not performing the surgeries. It's a "we" thing. Him and the surgeons are making it happen. But then 5 minutes or even a minute into the video, he says "All right, I cured one person's blindness. Let's do another 999. It's all right, stop these I statements. This is just a personal thing, and maybe all the I statements exist to elevate his brand, which is in the service of doing more charitable videos. Maybe that's a calculation they made at one point, and if that's the case, then go for it. But just from where I'm sitting, that was the only thing about Mr. Beast that always bugged me. Because sometimes, Squid Game, it's a game show, right? That's just what it is. And he'll say, "I'm going to give away all this money." And it's well, that's not how other game shows work. Ken Jennings doesn't give you the money out of his pocket and go, "Here you go, this is for me, for winning Jeopardy." Anyway, so he makes this video about blindness. I personally see this video and am it's kind of just it's upsetting to me. And I think some people feel this way, and I think a lot don't, right? But for me, I have the same feeling as when I see some sort of local news story about how this woman had to walk 20 miles to work every day, and then after 4 years, her boss gave her a car. And it's just some people see those, and it's "Oh, that's nice. She got a car." And I see that, and I'm she was working for 4 years, and she didn't have enough money to buy a car. But clearly she probably wanted to, because she's very happy to get the car. So whose fault is that? Where in the whole system have things fallen apart to the point where this charity is needed? And then looking at it from a further angle, is this charity what solves the problem? And if not, what does solve the problem? And hey, it's that boss isn't paying her enough. Stuff like that, and that this is all politics. In terms of sometimes I say "Oh, She-Hulk isn't political. It's just a show about a woman." This is politics because it's about what laws should exist and what, should the responsibilities be when it comes to governing a society and all that stuff. But I have the same response to this, right? Which is a YouTuber found 1,000 people and cured their blindness. He says very early in the video, Jimmy's talking to a doctor from a charity that is very legit and cool. I don't remember their name, but they describing the process and some version of like, and this is a surgery that lots of people can get, but most of them don't know about. And it's not like it's expensive, but it's not as expensive. It's not like, performing a miracle. It's a surgery that exists in the world and just people can't afford it. But look how much better it makes their lives. And I guess for me, that's the part of this thing that really gets me. And that's why I watch these videos and I cannot help but feel, and I don't like always watch them, but like I watched this one because I was curious, but I can't help but feel kind of sick but not because of anything Jimmy's doing or anything in the video. Again, I think it's cool that these 1,000 people can now see, but because, to quote the Joker, we live in a society where this is how these people this was the last resort, was I hope the YouTuber, I win this little lottery and I get 1,000 people, because I'm sure there's more than 1,000 people in the United States that want this surgery, but out of them, I'm going to be one of them and I'm going to get this surgery for free. And that will make my whole life better, right? I'm not even thinking about the rest of the world, because I can't speak to the politics of the rest of the world, but I can speak to the politics of America and our government. And the fact that these people have to do this is really upsetting, right? And if there's anything I would say to Mr. Beast, and I think to some extent we're getting there, which is great, is this video, millions and millions of people saw it immediately, was a huge hit. And obviously, like we're talking about now, so it's broken through a little bit. If people are going to see this, people are going to go, oh, that's bad, that's bad. And I'm sure there's people that will say, and by that's bad, I mean like people are blind and they can see if they get a procedure that's not incredibly cost prohibitive, but for them it is, so they can't get it. And I would hope that at the end of this video, because Jimmy has done things like Team C's and Team Trees that are supposed to be kind of group efforts with a call to action. If they believe that this is a real problem, and they do, clearly, I would hope that there's something else. It can be one of two things. Either A, you people out there donate to them. That's an option. I don't love it, because most of the people watching it probably also can't afford that surgery. And that's, the reality of just how medicine works in America. Or option two, and this is where it gets a little political, petition your local representatives to get them to cover this surgery. Like, I don't think people understand, in America, we have this absolute horrible healthcare system. Like the healthcare is good, but the health insurance system, that part sucks. And it only makes things more difficult, more expensive. We get worse care. Whenever they do measurements of this, it always stinks. However, there's dialysis is something that is paid for by the government. I do not know why. I believe it was Nixon just signed this into law. Like, hey, by the way, let's do dialysis for everybody. And it's something that is covered by the federal government. So even if you don't believe that we should do universal healthcare, right, which we should, but even if you don't believe that, you could definitely, I think Jimmy could make a case like, hey, listen, I want this one senator who I do know, because I'm sure it could, meeting with the senator or congressperson, is going to introduce this bill to give people access to this surgery, much like we did with dialysis. That's been, very effective. Call your congressperson, get him to vote for this bill. Because, and we talked about this in my Marvel video to some extent, obviously to very different effect, but this idea of structural change. And I think that's what I wish this video had. Now, today, or yesterday, I guess, but the 30th of January, Jimmy had a tweet that was something to the effect of, it's crazy in this country that you have to pay this much money for this surgery, and didn't say, and that's not something that's covered by the government, or that's something that is a right of people or anything like that, but got pretty close. So to his credit, it doesn't seem like Jimmy doesn't believe this, or he doesn't think people should be doing this. But he hasn't gone that last step, which is like, you'd ask him, okay, well then what should you do then? What do you do? And the only answer I can think of is either a humongous charity for only this, or some sort of government, either, assistance to people that need this surgery, or reform to the system that does it so that it is cost effective for people. And either of those things I think are realistic. I don't think they're unrealistic. And I think a lot of the realisticness of them comes from people saying they're unrealistic, right? I think a little bit, to some extent, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everybody says, well, would this be popular? And they said, I don't think other people would like it, so I don't think it's going to work. And it's like, well, if everybody thinks that, but we all like it, we can all do it. We just all have to be cool with saying it and believing in it. Now, I only worry. This is my only worry here. Because, again, I think Mr. Beast, Jimmy, seems like a good guy. A genuine, normal dude who got swept up in all this, but is still, like, he managed to be pretty normal about it. It seems like, and I'm not sure if this is going to happen soon, there's something going on with Elon Musk. I read in our New York Times article that he's a fan of Elon Musk, which, fine, a lot of people are. And especially, I don't remember when the article was written, but, like, Elon's kind of perception over the last year has changed a lot. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Like he's a person that we're learning more about every day. And I can understand people kind of being on his side, and then eventually it's like, well, actually not anymore. But they did this thing where right now on Twitter, or maybe not right now, but last week, Jimmy's Twitter bio said the real CEO of Twitter, and Elon's Twitter handle was Mr. Tweets, which leads me to believe there's some sort of video thing coming up where Jimmy is going to take over Twitter, and it's going to be Mr. Beast Twitter. And I don't even know what, it's just the thing. I don't know what that video would be. Like, I don't know what that content is. Him going to the office with sinks and like, oh, look, this is a big pile of clothes or whatever. Oh, but there were some chairs here before you had to sell them. Oh, this door's locked. There's a big padlock on it. I guess we can't go in there. Whatever is going on in the Twitter offices these days. But I do think there's something like that. And we know Elon politically is very into capitalism, which, hey, man, if you're into capitalism, I think there's a middle ground we can reach here. But also when it comes to like political parties, Elon seems very against, very progressive, the progressive parties that would be pushing something like this, some sort of universal healthcare program, or even just universal blindness, fixing eyes program. So I hope Jimmy does not hang out with him too much, because he's a bad influence. And Elon Musk kid, you can't trust him. But beyond that, like, again, I think the argument is there's nothing wrong with Jimmy, what he's doing. I don't care if by doing this, he is raising his own profile, and therefore it is making him money in some way. Because I do think it's like, well, are you going to not do it then? Or are you going to do it secretly? Because if you do it secretly, you probably won't get the money to do it. Like, he's not independently wealthy. He's wealthy because he's a YouTuber. So I have no problem with, well, not I have no problem, but I don't care about that. I question whether this actually has an effect on people, because some people will say, well, it's going to get people more aware of it. There's that argument. There's another argument based on social scientists that say that people watch a video like this and maybe, chip in a buck or two and think they've done it all. So maybe if something comes up like some sort of bill, they're like, well, I did that. I don't need to help in this other way. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely what it is, but I am saying they do kind of cancel each other out. So I don't have a super strong opinion on either one, whether this helps or hurts the charity generally. I'm sure people could make the argument one way or the other. And I guess there's some charities that he's worked with for long enough that maybe you can see how this has affected them. But I don't know. That's not what I care about. What I care about is the system that forces this video to exist. That is the part that I find appalling. And the fact that these people, most of them said, like, my vision just started getting worse and now it's bad and I can't do my job that I wanted to do. And now, that's all I got. And they have to kind of hope that a very altruistic YouTuber is able to fit them into the 1,000 people. Like, what happened to the 1,001st person? Now, again, I'm not saying, Jimmy, why didn't you do 1,001 person? But I am saying, like, that person didn't get help by the YouTuber. So beyond this big stunt we're doing, which I think is great, I would kind of hope, and this is just me and maybe disagree politically, there should also be some sort of call to action for the other 1,000+ people in the United States, at least, some way for us to help them. Either charity, which I'm not a humongous fan of. Not like I'm not a humongous fan of charity, but I think there's limits there and I guess I think things that should be social programs are often relegated to charity. It's like, well, charities will take care of that. Charities will deal with, the homeless people, and that's a charity thing. And it's like, it could be, but then it's you don't have this guarantee that you'll be taken care of. It's very charity to charity, town to town. Like, and I think it's clear that people have fallen through that system. Not that I think the government system is perfect in any of these situations, but I think that is the most equitable way to deal with something like this. And like I said, even if you don't want universal healthcare, some sort of dialysis but for people that don't know, dialysis is like it filters kidney. Like if you have kidney disease, it's like a machine you have to sit, and then it just kind of, I don't know, refreshes you. This is how much I don't know about things like this. I watched a John Oliver piece on it. But you could say, this is what we want. You should call your congressman and tell them to support this bill that, like, I don't know, it's from California. Katie Porter put up, giving people universal access to this specific medicine because this is the call of the video. I would hope that next time Jimmy does this, there's something there. Not because I don't think he's doing enough, but because I don't know who else could. I couldn't. Like I could say that, but I don't have the platform to organize the senator. I don't have the platform. Like my video is not going to get 60 million views immediately, which means people are going to all call their Congress people. All the Congress people are going to hear about this at the same time. Like there's value in that size and that scope. And, I think, and a lot of YouTubers, it's something a lot of us do pretty frequently, some sort of charity drive. Like it's not something, that we don't do, but it is something that I feel like once you're at that level, with great power comes great responsibility, I guess is kind of what I'm saying. Is like it's him or it's a celebrity or whatever, but he's got these big videos that get all this attention, and I hope that next time one of these comes out, there's something else attached to it that makes it more actionable and makes it so that, because I think the goal of this video, if I'm Jimmy and I'm making this video, my like end game or like best case scenario is this video never needs to happen again, right? Like I want this video to be the last one of these because we get it together after this. I don't want to have to come together and make we fix another 1,000 people's eyesight video every year. Not that because I think it's bad or like not fun as, playing Squid Game, but just because people are always going to fall through that system. So if you disagree with me on a political level, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is just how I feel. But I think at least this is kind of what how a lot of people feel about this. We have nothing against, I at least have nothing against Jimmy. I don't really have very much against the video or what he's doing in general. I think it is mostly, I think it is a net good. However, when people ask, well, what would you do differently? That's what I do differently. Some sort of call to action for some sort of structural change, because he's in a position, a very, very rare position where he can actually maybe do something. And I think that would be cool. So Jimmy, if you're watching, thank you for doing, it's a cool thing. Thank you for watching, first of all. But also, thank you for doing that. And I hope if you do it again, you can make that happen so that you don't have to you can go back to making Squid Game videos forever, because this isn't a problem that everybody has anymore. That would be nice.